I lost everything in the universe and then showed up here in Israel. And for like the first day, I was really mad. And then I was reminded, oh no, that's how pretty much everyone shows up in Israel, and every Jew ever for like the last few thousand years. Like you come and show up with nothing. And one night it was very literally a choice of possibly be killed or use every airline mile point that I had, because all my assets were frozen, and fly to Israel, where I'd already started the Aliyah process, and make a new life with nothing.
Welcome to this episode of Shoulder to Shoulder, a podcast where a pastor and a rabbi get to the heart of issues that matter to people of faith. I'm Pastor Doug Reed, here with my friend Rabbi Pesach Wolicki, and on this episode, we'll be having a conversation with American-Israeli actress who currently serves as Special Ambassador for the Ministry of Aliyah, Diane Neal. Before we jump into our conversation, please like our Facebook page and join our Facebook group, the Shoulder to Shoulder Community, where you can interact with Pesach and me all week long. The best way to support this podcast is to go on over to Patreon, subscribe to Shoulder. For just $10 a month, you'll get exclusive access to Shoulder Bible study, starting in Genesis chapter 1 from Rabbi Pesach and myself. We're so excited to have you come there and hear those episodes. We've been doing them for a number of years, and we're adding more and more each and every month. We're grateful for our sponsor, Israel 365 News, which is the place for you to go and get your news and information before going to anyone else. Go on over to Israel365news.com to check out some of their articles, and be sure to read Rabbi Pesach and my columns. Pesach, each and every week, Israel 365 has incredible products and initiatives going on. What are we supporting today?
Well, at Israel 365, we don't just talk about standing with Israel. We give people around the world meaningful ways to do it. We are fighting Jew hatred, or call it antisemitism, whatever term you want. And we are advocating for Israel and teaching people, equipping them with the right information so they can advocate for Israel. We're also working to get the truth out about Israel in front of more people. We're also educating Christians around the world, bringing young leaders here to experience the land of the Bible for themselves. And through Israel 365 charity, we at Israel 365 are caring for widows, orphans, Israel's heroes, and families who need our help. So if you believe in this work and you want to stand with Israel in a tangible way, I invite you to support Israel 365 today. Just go to Israel365.com/give. That's Israel365.com/give. And we will put this link in the description of this video on YouTube, and we'll put it in the description of the podcast. So please do that. So again, if you believe in standing with Israel, help us turn that belief into action. Support Israel 365 today, Israel365.com/give.
So important, listeners, stop on over there and do what you do. Well, Pesach, we're excited for this conversation. I'm here in Buffalo, which currently is 66 degrees. It is like fall. I have a hoodie on. Football season has started. I've got my Eagles mug. We had a preseason game Saturday. It was wonderful. We played the Patriots, which our producer Scott is a New England fan, and it was a good game. They won, we lost, but it was fun. But it's beautiful here in Buffalo. It's 66 in August.
Doug, we could talk about the weather all day long, but I got to tell you, what I've been thinking about lately is how, God is just orchestrating everything going on, and you see it every day in the Middle East, and the way Israel, despite all of the hate, Israel is getting stronger. Israel is a place full of people, happy people, building families, optimistic about the future. Our economy's booming. We're defeating our enemies. I mean, it is. If you just stop listening to what's being said out there by everyone, and you just pay attention to what's going on, and all these countries criticizing Israel, we saw this week, they're all attacking Israel for expanding the city of Jerusalem, for building more, between Ma'ale Adumim and the city of Jerusalem, and all these countries are freaking out because their cherished idea of a two-state solution is under threat, which is exactly the point. It should be under threat. I mean, there's such a thing as losing, and I think when you do an October 7th, you should lose. But that's a separate topic. But I just look around me, and as I walk the streets of Israel every day, I'm just like, wow, I cannot believe where I am at this time. It's just unbelievable. So yeah, I'm not belittling the conversation about the weather, and I'm happy that I'm not happy the Eagles lost. I couldn't care less, but gotta say, Doug, I cannot wait till you and your family get to Israel. Just before we bring in our guest, How's the family doing? What's on tap for the reads in the coming weeks? I've been looking at the reads are here. I've been looking at the YouTube channel. I'm not seeing too much new content there, Doug.
Yeah, so we started homeschool, and that's eaten into the kids' editing and video time for the YouTube channel. But they've started homeschool and soccer. The boys are busy with soccer right now. But September, we pick up full bore. I'm booked every Sunday till April 4th. In churches across the country, talking about Israel as I travel and kind of raise awareness. And every Sunday, I leaned on a few friends at Christmas time. Christmas time's tough to book guest speakers, but I have a few friends bringing me in and going to let me tie it into their sermon series or whatever they're doing. But very excited to get back on the road. But the next couple weeks, we're here in Buffalo. Like I said, my boys are into soccer right now, so I've been sitting at the soccer field, cheering them on, yelling, all that. But it's eating into editing time. We have not gotten a new video up in about a month on our YouTube channel. And I really want them to do it. I don't want to have to do another thing. So it's kind of a fun family project that we're letting the kids learn how to shoot video and edit and kind of track our travels. And they don't always get the best angles of me because my 8-year-old is like way down here. I look like Superman everywhere I go. I'm like, hold the camera up here, buddy. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, yeah. And for any viewers who are new to this podcast, the Reeds, Pastor Doug Reed and his family, his wife and 4 kids, will be moving to Israel, where they're going to continue doing the great work that they do for Eagle's Wings and other work that they're going to be doing there in Israel. And they're documenting their journey as they travel across America, sharing about Israel in churches across America. And, especially at a time like this where there's so much, so much talk about the downturn in support for Israel, the Reeds are out there on the front lines and picking up the family and moving. And my family can't wait to finally meet you.
Yeah,
so it's going to be exciting. I guess we should bring in our guest. She's been waiting and listening so nicely. So Diane Neal is an actress. I don't know if she needs much of an introduction. She's been on some pretty famous shows. I'm not a TV watcher, so I have to admit, Diane and I have become friends over the last few months. And it was kind of interesting. I think she found it kind of refreshing that I had never heard of her. But without further ado, let's bring in Diane Neal, who now lives in Israel and is doing very important work for the ministry of Aliyah here in Israel. And she is a living example of Aliyah. Diane, welcome to the Shoulder to Shoulder podcast.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me. I'm like Rabbi and Pastor. It's so good. I'm like Pastoreem. I'm trying to figure out what's a good combination of the two of you guys together. But I love it. And you know what, Pastor Doug, I am going to talk about the weather, and if you don't mind, because when you talk about God or Hashem, right, which is what we say a lot here, and his hand and everything. So today, I did not know that I was not going to be in the studio with Rabbi Wolicki, right? I had no idea. So I'm on the way here, and like most people, it was really funny. I lost everything in the universe and then showed up here in Israel. And for the first day, I was really mad. And then I was reminded, oh, no, that's how pretty much everyone shows up in Israel, and every Jew ever for the last few thousand years. You come and you show up with nothing. So I have a $500 Skoda, which is a check-made vehicle. And it's a really funny car. And I love it. And I'm really happy with it. And it feels sporty because it's a stick. But on the drive here, which is about an hour and 15 minutes from where I live, to the studios, I ran over the world's biggest piece of metal that fell off a truck in front of me. And my tire instantly shredded. I mean, just blew off, where you're just this, and you have to get over to the side of the road as fast as possible. And I was like, come on, man. And it is not 66 degrees here. I checked at the time because I was like, I need to know. It was 39 where I stopped. So cool. In Fahrenheit,
that's 100 degrees.
That's I was gonna say.
100 something. You're like, oh. Here's the cool thing. And this is the kind of thing you just don't even understand about Israel. Within a minute, a really hot guy, sorry, I shouldn't really, in a really nice car, who didn't speak a word of English, and my Hebrew struggling is a really kind way to say it, stopped, He got my spare out. He smiled. We tacked it, I did the thingy while he's doing the bolts. And we even pumped air in the spare tire because it probably hadn't ever been put on. And then he made sure that I got back on the highway. So this is on the highway. And then he led me, even though he wasn't coming here, he was coming to Jerusalem. He led me all the way here in his car to the main gas station where I could talk to you, Pesach, where I could make sure everything was going. And then that's where I found out, oh, it's not there. I'm like, yeah. But here's the amazing thing, right? It just gets better and better because I was excited. I'm like, oh, perfect. I'm going in to see the rabbi. And they have the world's most beautiful, Rabbi Tulis Auerston, Washington. The most beautiful office of all time.
Yeah, our offices are gorgeous. It is true.
It's gorgeous. And I didn't know that the rabbi wasn't going to be in today, but around the corner are like all the best tire shops in Israel. And where I live, there aren't any. So I'm like, this is perfect because over the next few days, I'm like, Hashem, God's looking out for me because if this had happened at any other point, right? Like these old tires, dry rot, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, I wouldn't be in this situation where I could have kind of limped along that last like 10 kilometers here with that guy. Didn't work to get a new tire. He tells me, he's like, I'm not there. We're doing this online. I'm like, guess what? My friend, who I only found out worked with Pesach at Israel 365, who I'm going to start working with, which is amazing. My friend Ben works here and lives down the street. He came, unlocked it for me, set this up so like my phone is kind of stuck in like a window, just like it's like holding there precariously. And I'm in Rabbi Tuli's office, and then he's going to help me go get tires. And it's one of those things, if I'd known, like if things had worked out differently, I wouldn't be able to go get my tires fixed today. It probably would have happened somewhere else because obviously that, you know what I mean? The tires are old and that spare was real janky. And that perfect person like stopped by. But that's also the thing about Israel. People don't realize like anything that happens, everyone will help you. If it hadn't been him, it would have been someone else. But it was him, and it was within a minute. And even like Ben showing up and leaving his kid, and you guys waiting, 45 minutes for me as I tried to sort everything out, and him leaving his kid. Like, this is a country where, and you'll understand this, Pastor Doug, being Christ-like. And I'm sorry, I'm going to go for a little bit because this is something. So one of my degrees is, and one of the things like JNS, all these people, they want me to be in some kind of think tank because all my degrees are national defense strategy and policy. Randomly, my specialty is Iran. Because I never needed a degree for school. So I've actually been going to Harvard since 2009. So I've just been taking whatever I felt like and never knew I was going to end up here. And one of my degrees is in neuroscience and neurocommunication, neuroscience of motivation. And last summer, I kept thinking about, because everyone says, be nice, be kind, be Christ-like, be a mensch, all these different things, but they all mean different things to different people. And I was trying to narrow it down into something that was scientific and actionable, that was like a definition that everyone in the world could understand. And this is what I could come up with. Ask, don't tell. Include, don't exclude. And the third part is with no expectation of outcome. So the example is like if you had a neighbor and he came and stole your barbecue without asking you and had a wicked crazy barbecue the next weekend and didn't invite you, you'd be pretty ticked off, right? But if he came over and he said, my barbecue's dead, he's asking, not just taking, and we're having a big barbecue next weekend and I'd love to include you. You don't have to bring anything, but do you mind if I borrow your barbecue? So you'd be asked and you'd be included, right? And then one of my friends, who is an amazing Christian sister nun in the States, she said, and then add the last part of no expectation of outcome. So like this guy today that helped me, there was no expectation of outcome. He didn't expect anything. He didn't want anything.
He just wanted to help.
He just wanted to help. So anyway, I love it. It is my absolute favorite thing about Israel.
And that's a beautiful segue into the beginning of our conversation. Why Israel? Why did you move? You had obviously a booming career in the States, and you're famous. Why move to Israel? Why pack it all up? Do you speak Hebrew? When did you get there? Give us the genesis of why go to Israel.
It's a completely random. The very short version is I like to call it I was Jonah into being here. It was I got the full Jonah. It was full biblical, baby. So I've been mostly like Reconstructionist and Reform, as we called it in New York, right? Holiday heap. That's pretty much what we were. And the entertainment crowd. And actually, Rabbi Pesach, listening to your episode recently about everyone in Hollywood and the Marvel movies signing the thing, that was fascinating because, man, you're dead on with that. But
let me just explain what she's talking about here.
Okay.
I made a video on this well, if you're watching on YouTube, on this channel, on my channel, about a whole bunch of all the stars of the Marvel movie, like 20 stars of the Marvel movies, like Cumberbatch and Cheadle and all these guys. They put out a statement calling on the governments of the world to demand the release from prison of Marwan Barghouti, who is
one of the worst human beings.
He's one of the worst terrorists in the world, and he's sitting in an Israeli prison on 5 murder convictions.
Yeah,
and there's this campaign among the woke progressives to turn him into Nelson Mandela. Anyway, that's what the video was about.
Running for office too. I mean, like the whole thing is absolutely mind blowing.
It's nuts. Yeah, he's going to get elected president of the Palestinian Authority from prison, a murderer.
Wow. And everyone's going for this. And it was really interesting when I was hearing you speak about it, and you were talking about how, yeah, it does. It comes from your representatives. Everybody said, oh, it's cool. Yeah, of course it's good. And it doesn't even matter. Like, you don't really vet it because you hear it's good. And that's a story for another day. But coming here, it was, I always knew I was supposed to be here. And I always knew that the only thing that matters in life is doing God's work. That's really it. And so even in my entire career, I was really lucky that I never had to compromise my morals. Like, I decided early on I was never going to do sex scenes. I was never going to do nudity. I was never going to, I mean, the fact that I actually even got to have a career for 25 years, never doing anything like that is really amazing to me, and another testament to how merciful, like, God is, and how much he cares, and how he's invested in everybody's life in a way to set them up for something else. But I was pretty resistant to come here, knowing that one day I speak Hebrew and was really enjoying life. And then I ended up having like a stalker. So if you're on like procedural like captures, you end up with like a lot of people. To give you an example, one of my friends from NCIS, she bought every house in the cul-de-sac she lives in. And there's like a thing and nobody goes. Like, it's because you have so many people always trying to me. I'm like, whatever, man. Like, I don't care. I was wrong. Sometimes you're wrong. And so it was getting really dire. And during this time, my father passed away, and good for him. He did it in like 30 seconds. You know, when you see people die over a long time, you're like, rock on, Dad. Good for you. And he and my mother at the time had been married 54 years. I'm the youngest. Wow. And my mom got so depressed. So this is like 2021. And I said, Mom, let's have one last great adventure. Let's make Aliyah. Let's go. Let's go. You never know when it was really going to happen, but we start working with Nefesh B'Nefesh. We start filling out our paperwork, all this kind of stuff. And in the meantime, I am just being hunted like an animal. And that's happening criminally. Well, civilly, the same person is suing me for hundreds of millions of dollars over, I think it's like 22 times in regular court. So I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything, draining money, worried about my mom. And because we're the last. I have one older sister that's still living, and she's on disability for mental illness. And not the way people think. It's pretty funny. She's like criminally insane, but she's wicked smart, but very dangerous. And so it's like it's a tough situation that we're the only gang left. And like God so often does, if he's telling you to do something and then you aren't doing it, and you aren't doing it, and you aren't doing it, he will make sure that decision happens. So, like Jonah, I got in the belly of the whale. And one night it was very literally a choice of possibly be killed or use every airline mile point that I had because all my assets were frozen and fly to Israel, where I'd already started the Aliyah process and make a new life with nothing. And I don't know about you guys, but that's what I always think about. And that is one of the things that we have 5,786 years of history. When it's a choice of live or die, it's always live. And so I came here with the smallest carry-on, and that was in the end of 2022, and finished making Aliyah. So I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything. I lived off the charity of others. I spent some nights in like women's shelters, and I couldn't buy food. I didn't eat it. That day I went to the airport in New York. My best friend and his husband, and like you find out his husband, who's a Jewish doctor, I keep trying to convince to come here. They gave me an envelope of $2,000. And that's all I had to live on for about a year, except for the charity of other people. So people would invite me for Shabbos and then send me back to this little place, in really scary neighborhood, but it was all right, that my friends from my congregation were helping me pay for. And I'd have that food for like a week until the next Shabbos. And all it did was make me, and legitimately, since I was prepared to talk to you, Pesach, about politics and everything going on. But especially like I ran for Congress, like that's my thing. But I also realized when I got here, there's so many people that are better at that than I am. Even if I have all the information and I know that stuff and I like it, I love to debate. You're better at that. Shabbos Kirstenbaum is better at that. Death is like, you guys, take it over. I'll talk about this part.
Well, Diane,
it was the most, I just feel like, how much does God love you to give you that much of life experience that you can understand everyone? By the way, quick tip, everyone, if you ever want to give things to like a women's shelter or any kind of shelter, those little airplane kits, because the lights are always on. You need the eye mask. The earplugs are amazing because people making noise, talking, kids crying, and a toothbrush. And it's kind of the greatest thing that you can donate. So, and again, forgive me for like drinking and putting on chapstick. It was hot. We were out there for a long time. We got tired. There's a lot of tire work.
Wow.
Sorry.
Well, so Diane, I want to ask you about. I mean, this is a very powerful journey, and you know, when you say you were Jonah'd over here, you think back to after World War II, when the Jews coming over from Europe, who were in internment camps, or they came across on boats, and there's all kinds of different ways people have made it to Israel, and everyone has their struggles, and you're obviously very in touch with how God has kind of held your hand through all of this. Considering when you came, it was not long after that this war broke out, that October 7th happened.
Yeah.
So could you
so
talk
my Aliyah
about...
date is the Ides of March, which I think is hilarious. So it's March 15th, 2023.
Oh, that's the day.
And
that's
my date.
Oh, that was your Aliyah date. Wow.
Yeah.
So it was really not long after that October 7th happened.
Yeah. And what I thought was really interesting, and one of the reasons I postponed it, and I think what you're talking about, a lot of Jews in the diaspora, and just people around the world generally, just have I didn't have any understanding. So like when my grandmother died, who's of the Holocaust generation, she said, it was 2008. And I always thought I was going to have like 1,000 kids and, that kind of thing. Nothing ever works out the way you think it's going to. But she said, don't give your kids Jewish names. And I was like, Grandma, like, are you serious? And she said, yeah. And I'm like, I kind of think we're past that. And how wrong was I? How wrong was I? And it started when I ran for Congress. It was upstate New York. It wasn't your far upstate, Pastor Doug. Like, it wasn't that far. It wasn't Buffalo. But it was from like Albany to the top of New York City. It was New York 19. It was a massive district, right? Bigger than the state of New Jersey. And so it was wild. And, I write God with like a hyphen, out of respect and things like that. And I would tweet things. And the Jew hate that started coming my way, and this is in 2018, was shocking. So I got that early taste of it. And that's right, Rabbi, I'll let you finish, but I would say because it happened so, I think, when you look up in the lead up to World War II, and actually any of the times, right? We're talking Spain in the time of Maimonides, Rambam, and any of these major, right? It's never usually incredibly fast. It's like the frog in the boiling water. And I would say to anyone at all, humping the States, I'm changing, it's really funny, but your money's not going to save you. The people you think your friends are not going to save you. Your fame is not going to save you. What's going to save you is being the best Jew that you can be, the best Jew you can be, and coming home. And this is home. And come now. Because if, like mine, Jonah, if you don't make the decision, life will make it for you, and it's never usually the way you want it to be.
Wow.
Go ahead.
That's an incredible journey. That is not how I thought your journey was going to be. I've had other conversations with folks who've made Aliyah for various reasons and all of that. But that's incredible that has been your journey and your story. And I think it's beautiful. And I think you should tell it more and more. People should hear that, because a lot of people think you have to have a ton of money to make Aliyah, that you have to learn Hebrew. You have to it keeps people from doing what the Bible's called them to do. And to your point, I think of scripture, some trust in chariots, some trust in horses, but we're going to trust in the name of the Lord. And I think, you can trust in your fame, you can trust in your job, you can think it's going to be okay. But unless you're in the middle of doing God's will, that's the safest place to be. Even if it puts you in Israel, which is in the middle of a really bad neighborhood, God is still protecting, still watching over, and still doing it. I think it's absolutely beautiful.
Well, and part of what you're saying, Pastor, is that you have to know God's will, right? And so part of that, like for me, which has never stopped my whole life, is reading my scriptures every day, praying and davening every day. And even like last night, one of my friends sent me this thing as I was going to bed, and I was trying to decide what scriptures to read. And I went back to Lot and Lot's wife. And I kept thinking, why was it so bad that her turning around? Why was that worth her being turned into a pillar of salt? And I'm sitting there, and one of the things I love, and you guys will both understand this as men of God, that so much of like the Tanakh, the Old Testament, and it's question and answer, right? Especially when you're with the prophets. They're like, what do you do? What do I do? What do I do? Like it's a dialogue. And so I was having my own little dialogue with Hashem last night. He said, well, what? And he said, it's not that she looked back. It's that she looked back with longing already, because it took a lot of convincing to kind of get them out of there anyway, and they just got out of there in the nick of time. Again, they didn't want to go. It's really hard to give up everything you have or to sacrifice or anything like that. They didn't really want to go, but they got out in the nick of time. And her looking back was because she was already, oh, remember how great that life was. Instead of having faith and looking forward and knowing that the best was yet to come, even though all they had was what they were carrying. And I really needed to hear that last night, because if someone had told me like a year and a half back into being here, because my mom got awful cancer and hasn't gotten to make it, but a year and a half I've been here. You have no idea how hard I've been trying to like find a job. And when I got invited to be the ambassador of Aliyah, it was like when there was that whole brouhaha of all these, celebrities that were taking money and a lot more to support Israel. And that was another one. I got on my knees and I asked Hashem, I'm like, man, I am broke, son. I'm sorry. God and we get casual sometimes. I'm like, and it was very clear, don't take the money. So I haven't gotten paid a dime since I've been in Israel. And again, this 16 months. And it's because of people like Israel 365 and my friends. And I have no idea. Like, I barely make it. Like, I guarantee there will be some miracle that will pay for this tire. But that also shows you too, because to me, I've always believed in Moshiach. And I've always known that he's coming. And I do think everything is hastening. And it's really interesting because, my friends, especially anyone left, they're just like, you're out of your mind. And I feel like I've never been more sane because it's so unbelievably clear. And that getting a chance like you guys coming here to prepare the way. And I would assume that both of you believe in the Moshiach. The point of departure might be the name.
Sure.
Right.
Whether he's coming for the first time or the second time, things like that.
Right. Yeah. And you know what? Like I'm like, I don't know. As long as he comes, like I'm good with that. And I always remind, because my dad was Christian. He's Southern. He's so funny. And I always remind one of my good friends, ultra Orthodox, was asking. He's like, well, what am I going to do? What if it is Jesus? And I'm like, you know what? If it is Jesus, remember, he didn't really have a lot to do with that stuff that came for 2,000 years after him. He's just a good Jewish kid from down the road, like in the weird part of town. And I'm like,
don't hold it exactly. Don't hold Jesus responsible for all the atrocities committed against us in his name. It's not his fault.
It's kind of forgetfess. Like, that's kind of his jam. So, like, you're gonna be fine.
And I like that theology. I like your theology, Dan.
Like, and if it's not him, like, you're gonna be awesome too. Have you read all this stuff? The great Rabbi and the sages say about Mashiach. Like, either way, we're gonna be cool. And so I feel like as long as I can stay in touch, with God, that every minute of every day, because it gets hard. You want to curse and like, man, I miss nice things. I like living in more than 200 square feet. Like, I miss all my houses and my fun toys. I had a lot of toys. Like, you don't have kids and you have a lot of disposable income. Like, I had a lot of toys and a lot of cars and a lot of fun things. And you realize none of it matters. It's all just passing through. It is really all just passing through. And the only thing that is really yours, because it is not the breath in your lungs, it is nothing, it is simply your agency. And that is what you get to lay down on the altar. Your free will.
What you do with it. Yep.
That's it. That's it. And people always, they mistake like hope or then faith, they're just like, oh, that's, wishful. I'm like, man, faith is crazy. Faith is like hope. Yeah. But it's hope with like an insane amount of courage. Then courage isn't like bravery, right? Courage is being totally afraid because you know the consequences or the possibilities, but you do it anyway. And that's what I think about, like when I've been visiting a lot of the hostages, the kids in the IDF, down bases everywhere, and the amount of courage that's like in our veins, that's in the Israeli people, especially, as well as the Jewish people, as well as like the participating Zionist Christians, the righteous. And I think it makes God so happy in a world where there's so much horror. Anyway, I'd love to ask things about you, but stop me anytime. I apologize.
That brings us to, I wanted to ask you about October 7th, because I've heard you talk about this before, and I'd like you to share with our audience that you're obviously, we've all gotten a taste so far in this conversation of how you process things and how you're very in touch, with God and stripping things down to what matters most. And you come to Israel, and a few months later, the ground shifts under our feet and the whole world changes. And now since then, you've met with former hostages, you've met with some of the injured soldiers, you've met with all kinds of people who've gone through this. Could you share some of your reflections on that? Yes. Because you're kind of like an insider, but also an outsider, because you kind of came just before it, so you're at the one hand participating in Israeli society, but also kind of observing it. So give me your sense of what you saw during that time period.
And that's one of those things that, like, I always think, and I think that with politics too, you got like that person that just moved, because I'm a New Yorker, right? So you get that person that moves to New York City, and like within a week, they're like, let me tell you about the politics. And you're just like, you don't know anything, kid. So, it was so the amount of like the personal hate started because I dropped the D. It's very liberal, and it's really funny. I you put country before party, and I'm like, well, obviously, clearly, if we're asking the Republicans to do that, we should do the same. And I did that. That was insane. Like, sued by everyone, and got to be outside both the bubbles. And I'm like, ooh, not a Democrat anymore. I'm just going to put it that way. And then. So that was a lot of hate. And then when I made Aliyah, that was just an extreme amount of hate. And then I filmed a movie, a really cool movie called Jerusalem 67 in September. By the way, there's the difference between acting here is like I made 300 shekels a day, which is like $100, but it was awesome. And and then I flew back because remember I'd come with nothing, right? And I only had a tiny bit left, and it was in my mom's house. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go back. I flew back the last week of September 2023, and my ticket to return here was October 11th. So I was there in the States. And I'm...
Oh, my goodness.
Wow. So you weren't even here.
No. I mean, it just like happened in that. And it starts happening. And I am, again, like when I say fortunate, I mean, thanks God for prepping me for anything. Like, I was in 9/11, just down by the North Tower. I've been in a huge plane crash. I mean, like, there is nothing. 15 earthquakes over 7.0. I've lived all over Asia. I zipped up a lot of I have lived a lot of really crazy stuff. But this is the crazier kind, and I'm watching it happen. And I'm trying to get a hold of everybody, and nobody knows what's going on, right? Nobody knows what's going on. And because so many of my friends, the people that are still with me are my friends that have been my best buddies since I was 8, that don't have anything to do with entertainment. And by the night of October 7th, people were telling me it's Israel's fault. By October 8th, the new rabbi at my very liberal former congregation in New York City was protesting for Palestine. Ended up getting arrested for protesting for Palestine. So in the middle of Fifth Avenue. Yeah.
I mean, look,
one of my friends.
I mean, that's the state of, unfortunately, that's the state of a lot of liberal Reform Judaism today.
And one of the things that I try and explain this, like last night, I was talking to one of my buddies. So I'm watching this all happen. And then again, I believe it was, and obviously like horrifying. And by the way, I watched the footage. It's one of the very beneficial things about not having kids and things like that. I can help agencies do things that are very difficult, like identifying bodies, things that are really hard for other people. I got that knack, like paying taxes. I've never had to do that my entire adult life. So like, I'm not good at anything normal. But like that stuff. Okay. And I watched a kind of butchery and savagery. And that was one of the things that people do not understand about Israel. They're called the Israeli Defense Forces for a reason. It's not the Israeli Conquer Forces. The kids come home like every other weekend. They're defending their homeland. And biblically, it is very, very clear that, yes, sometimes you have to kill. And sometimes you have to wipe everyone out, like Saul. Sometimes you have to do that. But you don't take any pleasure in it because they're also God's children. This was glee. And I also wanted to know what I was coming back to. And obviously, my flights, everything was closed, were delayed. My favorite thing was that the emergency flights were Israelis being picked up in America to come back here and fight. They weren't everyone evacuating. It was everybody coming home and El Al flying them home. But since I hadn't turned in the IDF, like I couldn't get on one of the flights. And then a week later, my mom was diagnosed with several types of stage 4 cancer, which was a blessing because I didn't have any money after so many millions in legal fees, right? I probably wouldn't have been able to afford another ticket. And I got to stay home and be with her. And when I finally came back, forgive me, when I finally got to come back about a year and a half ago, all these people were like, oh, hell of a time to make Aliyahs and I'm like, it's the best time. This is the best time because now we know where we stand. It's clear as day. And one of the things I try, first of all, I'm like, is anyone aware of like basic math and how algorithms work? Because like, okay, 15 million people and the supporters like you, Pastor, and then even if just numbers, right? Even if you're promoting stuff, you've got like 2.2 billion Muslims, right? Or anyone supporting them. And so you're pumping information out on scales that are vastly different. It's like the point of a pen to this. And then the algorithm picks up this and picks up this and picks up this. That doesn't mean it's not true. It just means there's more of it out there to see. And in the last couple days, I've been working with an organization that was trying to, ambitious as hell, part of the White House office to de-radicalize the Levant. I kid you not. I'm like, let's go for it. Don't think it's going to work, but let's give it a try. Like, why not? And yesterday ended up, I spent from 3 a.m. until about midnight last night helping deal with a hostage situation in Gaza where the different rival clans and Hamas had kidnapped the bunch of the teachers and the CEO. These are their own young women. These are their own friends. These are their own people. Interrogated them. We're not sure if they were tortured yet. These are Gazans who are teaching Gazans in Gazan schools. And there's no problem with it. And there's no problem. It goes back to like psychology and Henry James. They're just different roots, and it doesn't mean they're any less than. And I don't believe in calling anyone animals or monsters, because animals and monsters don't have the ability to be accountable. But if you're human, you absolutely can be accountable. So they're human. There's just a lot of people with different wiring. And then at the same time, when I got to take a break for a few minutes at sunset on the beach where I live north of Tel Aviv, in my tiny little spot. Because when you lose everything, you have like one thing you like. And I'm like, all right, I can't even face the beach, but I face the street, but I got a place on the beach. And I went down, and it's, Arab, Muslim, Israeli families, it's Druze families, it's Christian Israeli families, it's Jewish Israeli families. Everybody's having fun. And I'm not kidding. This is not even hyperbole. Every victim I've talked to, everyone that was a hostage, everyone that watched their family murdered in front of them, the mayor of Eshkol down south, the head of security, everyone from the north to the south. I've been from Lebanon to the other day. I had a foot in Gaza and like a foot in Egypt. And if I had that, I could have put an arm here. One thing they all say, I'm like, what do you want? Like, what would you say? Because they're like, no one helped us. We watched the most incredible violence. This peace. And so when I try and explain to people, I'm like, how do you negotiate or come to terms with people who do not value life? Not even our lives. The lives of their own children. And I don't have an answer.
Yep.
Anyway, and so to me, it's Jew hate. I call it Jew hate. I try and remind everyone too, this is a Mediterranean country, man. Which is the Middle East. It's Mediterranean, baby. It's beautiful. Come visit. Everyone's like, is it scary? I'm like, it's not scary. It's the most awesome place on earth. It's the most awesome place on earth because of like the guy that helped me today, or the day when Trump said like, hey, we got everybody's backs. And it was like, he was talking about it. That feeling that we all knew we were going to war. We all knew what it was going to be like. We're all getting stuff ready for our McLots and Mamods. Like we knew it was going to suck, right? We knew ballistic missiles were going to be fired at us we didn't even know how long, when it was going to start. And the entire country, this entire group of people from the Haredi to the most secular, everywhere, from Judea and Samaria right to where I live, everywhere, everyone was willing to risk their lives for the 100 million people in Iran we've never met. Where, you're in the States, Pastor Doug, where have you seen that kind of unity, that purpose? It almost doesn't exist. It was almost euphoric, right? Like it's like, you know, when those moments that you can feel like the Spirit of God in a way that's so profound.
Diane, I got.
Sorry,
Diane, I got to tell you, I've lived in Israel for over 30 years. I've raised my kids here. A number of them have served in this war and combat roles, and hearing it from you, from someone who kind of came just a couple of years ago, and the way you're describing that really powerful social cohesion and that the inspirational aspect of what Israel is. In the opening of this podcast, I was saying to Doug how sometimes I just sit back and look around me and say, like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest place on earth. And it's good for us to hear that and to be reminded of it, because when you live in Israel, it's kind of like normal. Oh yeah, you grow up, we're going to go to the army, we're all in this together. But going through these types of traumas together, no one wishes it on us, but the positive impact of the social bonds that are built in this nation and the way people feel about each other, it translates into that guy helping you with your flat tire today. This is all the same thing. And all the people Israel's it's the greatest. I mean, forget about all the theological stuff and the biblical stuff. This is the greatest society on earth.
Yeah. I hate to say it, and I love, like clearly, like if you run for Congress, and I read everything from, Plato's Republic all the way back on. I was doing all the gang, you know what I mean? And the, everything in between twice. Because I wanted to see I love the founding fathers. You could go back to Solon the Great, in ancient Greece, in the beginning of all this kind of great constitutional law. I love this stuff. This place. And people forget too. They're like, it's the only it is the only democracy in the Middle East, but it's also a theocratic democracy, but in a way where God is added, whether you can. And that's one thing, and fun thing about being Jewish. You're Jewish whether you believe in God or not. I always think that's incredible. But one of the amazing things, you'll remember this, when I first got here, and since you guys have been talking for that long, do you remember the Supreme Court protests? And sure. I was living in one of the Nanky. Yeah, I was living in one of the Nanky neighborhoods where that was going on. It was a good thing I couldn't even afford a bus ride, right? And let alone a car. So it's okay, the Elon's blocked up for the next 10 hours, the highway. Okay, it's fine. I'm not going anywhere anyway. And so everyone thought, oh yeah. And it was so evident. It didn't matter. The second everyone needed to come together. And I was the time, remember, reservist pilots were saying hey, we're not going to fight if this. It felt like, I'm oh my gosh, this is chaos. No one knew if the young generation was going to step up, because they like to party, they like to dance. It was very different than from other times of war. And man, this is a different generation of people. I have never seen kids like that. And even, so I have two really good friends. One from my getting less reform congregation, Har Shalom. Hi guys, Temple Har Shalom. Hi Sherry Zigman and hi Aliyah Zigman. Aliyah, super hippy dippy. It was really funny. I was writing a thing for her commander. She was graduating. She came. She's a lone soldier. Grew up in Beverly Hills, Brentwood, right? And I wrote, hey, to her commander in this great letter, just to read. I'm remember when we were Marxists? How long ago that was? And it was a joke, but it's also true. And how the world changes so much. And that's actually one thing I would want to say, because, liberal Jews and former, your brain is scrambled right now. And I have just come down to it in this way. It's simply just good versus evil. That's it. Pick the good. Don't do the evil. And same with politics, same with anything else. Go for what's good, leave the evil behind.
Amen.
And also to Jews of the diaspora, you guys don't know what it's like until you come here. You don't know. Come here.
Now, this has been so good. Your faith and courage is just super inspiring. And thank you for sharing and being so vulnerable. Our audience is about, we don't know the exact numbers, but it's a lot of evangelical Christians and then also Jews from around the world. What would you say to those Jews that are waiting to come? What resources are available? How would you direct them as the ambassador for Aliyah in Israel? Give us, and then if there are Christians saying, how do I support? What are the channels? Maybe we have a lot of generous donors that listen to this podcast. If they wanted to give to help someone make Aliyah, how would they do that too?
That's actually one of the best things you can do, because I know you guys are coming as well. And I am absolutely not going to sugarcoat this. Even as the ambassador of Aliyah, right? Like I have like BB's phone number in my phone, right? Working with the everything else. I have not received one of my benefits. I am running from agency to agency to agency. It is a cluster, but you know what? I wouldn't change it for anything. And clearly, I needed to be humbled. You will probably have a much better experience. And mine was also different because I had to finish the process while I was here. If you can finish, right now they're doing all these incredible things where you actually finish the Aliyah process on the plane. You get your citizenship as you're on the flight. Like it's you land a citizen. Like I've met a bunch of these flights. They're incredible. There are resources, just learn about them before you get here. Again, I came in like an emergency, so it's not like your typical situation. If, like my buddies that gave me that envelope of cash, and you want to support people coming, that helps too, because it takes a minute to figure things out. If you don't know Hebrew yet, if you've been more secular of a Jew, it gets pretty hard to adjust. And I would also... Again, I would invite every Jew in the world to come home. And I would invite them to come home, again, before they're forced to come home. And I do think that is in the not too distant future. Contribute, let's build what we can together. Life is not easy here, but it is the greatest life I have ever known. And I've had some pretty sweet life. And for all of our evangelical friends, I would say, as I have loved you, love one another. This new commandment, love one another, because by this shall man know, ye are my disciple, if ye have loved one to another.
Beautiful.
So remember that. Support Israel 365. I mean, like the amount of outreach, the help. I mean, seriously, they're coming up with ideas like, look, we don't actually need this kind of thing, Diane, but we're going to try and come up with something to help you, eat and get through life. And the products that they sell and the books are actually incredibly good. Like there's a beautiful one that I just got a couple copies of. It's like volume 1 and volume 2 of prayers, like beautiful, regular Jewish prayers. And they're in Hebrew, and then they're transliterated so you can learn it. And then they're in the English so you know what you're saying. And that's been really helping me learn. And the best support you can do is learn the truth about the situation. And I would highly recommend, I have listened to everyone in the universe online. Most people are hyperbolic. They don't have the information. They don't vet even the sources where they get things. Rabbi Pesach's show is unbelievably accurate. I don't even know how you find the time for that. Seriously, Rabbi, like it is shocking. I mean, because that's one of the things I found out when I was running for Congress. It's not that people want to be ignorant. It's they don't have time and they don't know what sources to trust. And man, I do a lot of work with that too. Rabbi Pesach, the best I've seen that has anything to do with the region, honestly. So that's a really great resource. And find out the truth and then act on it. And stay close to God, right? Because he'll tell you what to do. And always stick up. That's the other thing. If you're in a room with someone that's saying something, even if there's not a Jew around, be the person that's brave and courageous. Be the person that does it.
All right.
Thank you, Diane. This has been inspirational, and I'm believing that we're going to hear from folks that they heard this episode and decided to come home, that Jews are going to come home because they listened to this episode. And thank you to our wonderful listeners for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, rate, share this podcast, subscribe on Patreon, come on over to Facebook, check us out on YouTube. We love to connect with our Shoulder to Shoulder family, and we'll see you on our next episode.